Don't spill that. My wife will be upset.
I'm not. I'm a pro.
You're a pro egg dyer?
Oh, yeah.
You know there's more to Easter than just the eggs, right?
Yeah. Chocolate bunnies, marshmallow chicks, and, jelly beans.
Hey, why don't you go to church with me this Easter?
Can he come?
Sure. But you know, Easter's not about the bunny, right? My wife's gonna hate this.
There was a church conference, not exactly sure where, but to kick off the conference, like the large general session, they hired a professional speaker to come in and recite the 23rd Psalm. Some of you are familiar with it. Maybe it's new to you. If you've grown up in church at all, you probably have heard the 23rd Psalm once or twice. But he did a fabulous job. He hit his highs, he hit his lows, he paused really well, and everybody sort of applauded when he was done reciting the 23rd Psalm. They went on, they did the sessions, there was a couple of speakers, there was some worship in between, and they had invited like one of the area senior pastors, guy in his 70s, to also close with the 23rd Psalm. And so he got up, and this gentleman, here's what he said. He said, "The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I would walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and you anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. And surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And there was a little bit of buzz after the gentleman finished, and a couple in the crowd began to ask themselves what was the difference between the first guy and the second guy. And what they concluded was the first guy knew the psalm inside and out, could recite it backwards and forwards. The second guy, he knew the shepherd. And it was a telltale difference in how he responded to the words of what the shepherd does for him as opposed to the guy who just had the scriptures memorized. Here's what I want for you this morning. I want you to know the shepherd. I want you and I to be so fixated on the good shepherd and what he does for you and I that we can't help but love him in response. As opposed to knowing about him, I want us that we would know him. Huge difference. So this morning, we're going to talk about Jesus as the good shepherd. I want to pray, and then I want to show you a kind of a sad story. All right? Father, thank you for the chance we have this morning. Thank you for those who are watching online. We are grateful for the chance to open your word and hear what your son had to say to us about who we are, about what we mean to you, what we mean to him, and how we might live life in a way that makes sense. I ask it in the name of Jesus, our Savior. Amen. Over 400 times in the scriptures, I think that was a number that I came across, there are references to sheep, shepherding. One of the most, it's just probably the most common word picture metaphor that you find in the Bible is of us being sheep and Jesus being a shepherd, the Father being a shepherd. I think if this is going to work for me, this is from 2005, a little bit ago. It's from Turkey. There was a herd of 1,500 sheep that got loose, and the first sheep seriously went off the cliff, and all 1,500 sheep followed off the cliff. They counted the dead. The first 400 were dead, crushed, fallen. The other 1,100 survived only because of the 400 that they fell on top of. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy. I mean, what kind of dumb animal just follows somebody off the cliff? Don't let that escape you, all right? This is in southern Idaho, 2022, June, less than 2 years ago, southern Idaho. There was a flock of sheep there. There were 2 wolves in the daylight. That's what made the news, that wolves don't normally attack during daylight. They usually come at night. There were 2 wolves that got in amongst the sheep and scared them, and they lost 143 lambs and ewes. Again, same deal. The wolves chased them off the cliff, and that's where they just went, and they followed one after the other to their plunging to their death. I'd like to think I'm smarter than a sheep. You know, here's the mental picture I have of a sheep, right? Is it the Serta sheep? The nice little cuddly, soft little thing, kind of like, oh, he looks so fun, and we just want to hug him, you know. That's not a really good description of what sheep look like and act like and like, you know, how we work with them. And so it's sort of interesting that when Jesus had the opportunity to say, hey, here's who I'm like, he chooses the image of a shepherd, right? So if you have your Bible, open to John chapter 9. I'm going to give you the backstory to the story, because in my mind it's kind of interesting. In John 9, again, if you grew up around the Bible, the story will be familiar to you. If not, that's why I want to help you understand sort of the back end of this thing, all right? John 9 is when Jesus and his followers come across the guy sitting there sort of begging, looking for things. It says here that as he went along, verse 1 of chapter 9, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples, his followers asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? That was just common belief. If you were having hard times in life, it must be something you did wrong. We still feel that way today. There's a lot of that thinking that's still out there today. If your life's not going well, it must be because you messed up or your parents messed up. Now, let's be fair. Let's be fair, and we've got to be honest. A lot of times it is because we mess up. You know, and we kind of live in a culture where it's like, it's not my fault, it's my parents' fault, it's society's fault, it's the neighborhood I grew up, it's their fault. Sometimes you and I make stupid choices, and then there is pain because we make stupid choices, but we don't want to acknowledge that we made the stupid choices. We just want to wallow in our pity. They come across this guy, Jesus, who messed up? This guy messed up? Is that why he's blind? Was it his parents? Was it his grandparents? And Jesus said, no. Look at verse 3. Not this man, not his parents sinned. This happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. Jesus said, as long as it's day, we've got to do the work of the one who sent me. Night is coming, and you can't work at night. While I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. And then he spat on the ground. He picked up the mud. He put it in the guy's eyes, and the guy opened his eyes, and he could see. And then he makes the mistake of telling people that he can see. So the religious leaders, the rest of the chapter, call him in, and they're like, how is it you can see, dude? You know? Who did this for you? Because this doesn't happen. We don't have people that can miraculously get their sight back. And they quiz the guy all day long. I want to jump to the end of the chapter. Verse 34. Let me back up, verse 32. This is the guy talking to the religious leaders. He said, nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. The guy just got his eyesight said to the big old hot shots, if this guy wasn't deity, how could he do this stuff? I'm just telling you, my life is different. I can see now. I didn't used to be able to see. Last week I was blind. Today I can see. We want to have an inquisition about how it got here. I'm telling you, this guy did it. That's all I can say. To this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. You are just messed up, dude. Don't you try and lecture us. How dare you lecture us? How dare you tell us who this guy is? You're a nobody. And they threw him out. They said, do not come back to worship at this church again. In this case, the temple. So what would you do? I mean, you've just gone from a really, really high point in your life. Think about it. I don't even like closing my eyes around my house and I know where things are. He's had sight restored. Boom. Highest of highest. And now the people that are in control of things just said, you're an idiot. Get out of here. Jesus heard they'd thrown him out, verse 35, and when he found him, Jesus went to the guy. He said, do you believe in the Son of Man? That was Jesus' most often term when he referred to himself, identifying with humanity. Do you believe in the Son of Man? Who is he, sir, that I could believe in him? Who is this? And so the guy knew there was something going on here. Who is he, sir? Tell me so that I would believe in him. And Jesus said, you have now seen him. In fact, he's the one speaking with you now. And the man said, Lord, I believe, and he worshiped him. I believe he fell at his feet. I believe there was a sense of awe and wonder in his heart. You are the Messiah. You are the one that we've been looking for. And so all through life, here's what we've got. We're asking this question, who is this guy? You honestly may be asking it today. Who is Jesus? Is he some miracle worker? He's some really good teacher, but he's not really God. But he said a lot of good things. I know we're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to be kind, do good. Is he God? Is he Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah? Is he? Because if he's God and he invites me into a relationship with him, does that change how I look at life? See, to me, that's the big deal. It's not just be more religious. Jesus didn't come to make us more religious. Jesus came to change our life, and we were to follow him and say, we have a relationship with Almighty God through his son, Jesus. That's a deal changer. That means I live life differently. That means I speak differently. That means I handle my money differently. That means I handle conflict differently. That means I look at this world differently. That means I look at life and death differently. If it's just religion, and you show up on Sunday, but Monday through Saturday, it's back to your regular old world, he hasn't changed it much, has he? You just where you show up on Sunday at 9:30. And I promise you, Jesus came to do something more than change where you sit on Sunday at 9:30. That's not why he came. He came that you and I might have a sense of life, that there might be hope, that there might be forgiveness, we might exude and exhibit grace, that we might be an encouragement to others in the faith. Who is he? I'm the one speaking to you, Jesus said. I believe. He drops at his feet. Now, we put in chapter divisions, but this story rolls on. Jesus says then in John chapter 10:1, I tell you the truth, the man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way, is a thief and a robber. The man who enters by the gate's the shepherd of his sheep. And the watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. And when he's brought all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him. I have that highlighted in my Bible, because they know his voice. They'll never follow the stranger. In fact, they'll run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. And Jesus used this figure of speech, but they didn't understand what he was telling them. They were like, okay, Great story. Not sure how it applies to life. So Jesus continued, I tell you the truth, I'm the gate of the sheep. All whoever came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and he'll go out and he'll find pasture. The thief only comes to steal and to kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I have that verse underlined. Jesus came to give you and I a sense of this is what it means to live. We go to Taylor Swift concerts to live. We go see the latest release of the movie to live. We need things to spike our adrenaline because we're bored. You go look for entertainment because you're bored. You spend hours on your tablet because you're bored. You scroll through your Instagram because you're bored. You're addicted to Facebook because you're bored looking for other people and looking at what all the cool stuff they're doing, all the while going, I'm not doing that cool stuff. And we miss that Jesus said, I have come that the one who follows me would have a sense of real living, real joy. There'd be a fullness in your life because you're living a real life and you're interacting with real people. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He talks about here a hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep, so when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and he runs away, and the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it, like we saw in Idaho. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and he cares nothing for the sheep. Verse 14, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. I'm going to jump on down then to verse 25. Jesus said, I did tell you that you don't believe in me. The miracles I do in my Father's name, they speak for me. Look at the words and actions of Jesus is what he's saying. Look at what I've done. You don't believe what I'm telling you, then look. Look at the guy who didn't have sight and now has sight. Look at him. How do you account for that? What do you say to that? The miracles I do in my Father's name, they speak for me. They are evidence for me, but you don't believe because you're not my sheep. For my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one can snatch them out of my hand. My Father's given them to me is greater than all, and no one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and the Father are one. Jesus is the good shepherd. Find that interesting. Jesus didn't say, I'm the good banker. Could have. Jesus didn't say, I'm the good teacher. Could I? I'm the good rabbi. I'm the good carpenter. Now, Jesus purposely chose a shepherd. And he used the word good. And the word good has with it two ideas. One is if I say to you, they're a good person, what comes to mind? Quality, their characteristic. You would say, oh, they're a good, upright person. Probably they got their act together. Have you ever looked at somebody and said they're bad, stay away? What are you saying? There's stuff going on in their life that I don't want any part of. Good, okay on the inside. This word for good isn't that word. This word for good teacher is if I said to you, I was on a baseball diamond yesterday, doubleheader. I saw some good baseball players. Was I talking about their moral character? Or was I talking about their ability, their talent? If you go see a good doctor, if you have a good doctor, are you referring to their moral capability, qualities, or are you talking about who they are as a person and their skill level? Jesus is the good shepherd. He is the winsome shepherd. He is the beautiful shepherd. He is the shepherd that people want to be with. Is he character quality, morally pure and sound? Absolutely. But that's not when Jesus here is talking about himself, right? Because Jesus is using the word. Jesus has said, I am the good shepherd, not the crowd going, hey, there's a good shepherd over there. Jesus is using this to describe himself, and he says, I am the winsome one. I am the attractive one. I am sound. I am beautiful. I am good. What does the good shepherd do for us? John 10:11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life. I want to give you 3 characteristics or traits or things that I want you to think about in why you would follow Jesus as a good shepherd. Here's the first one, that he knows you. He knows you. It says there a couple times, I know my sheep. My sheep know me. They listen to me. But then I ask myself this question, what does he know about you? What does Jesus know about you? Can I give you a couple things? What do you think he knows about you? And I want to put it in the context of what did the shepherd know about the sheep? You know, one of the things that he knows about the sheep is they're defenseless. Sheep cannot defend themselves. They can't run very fast. They got no claws. They got no horns. The sheep's only defense mechanism is, are you ready for this? The shepherd. It's the shepherd who fights off the enemy. It's the shepherd who tries to get the wolves and the animals that might attack the sheep away. That's the only defense mechanism sheep have, is a good shepherd. And it says there in the text that when you have the hired hands, they run at the face of danger. And you know that's true. You know that's true. Because when your life gets messed up and you need help, it's your friends who are there, right? Not all your Facebook friends, not all the ones who run, not all the ones who call you names behind your back, not all the ones who stab you in the back and say, yeah, see, I knew they had it coming. It's your friends that are there for you. Jesus, what else does he know about sheep? Not only are they defenseless, they're stubborn. They're not very smart animals. And when I'm writing this down, right, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, but that really sounds like an insult, right? Am I saying I'm not very smart? Because I think I'm pretty smart. You think you're pretty smart. Come, just be honest. You do, right? You know you got you may not be Einstein, but you know you're smarter than most people. You know you're above average. That's the problem. We're all above average. We're not sure who average is, but you're above average, right? And the shepherd knows that. The shepherd knows that you're stubborn. The shepherd knows that you're not very smart. The shepherd knows you're a pack animal. You follow the leader. Very few people stand out. Very few. That's why I say to people all the time, any dead fish can swim downstream. It takes nothing for you to go with the crowd. Absolutely nothing. It takes absolutely nothing for you to jump in line with everybody else and group think. It takes a little bit of effort for you to think outside the box and think for yourself. It takes a little bit of effort for you to go beyond the headlines of what you see and really dig in and say, what are the issues that are being talked about out there? And where do I stand on the issues? Why do you think TikTok and social media has become such a boom for people? Because you can get your information in about a 45 to 60 second clip and you think you know all there is to the issue because you looked at it. It's one of the things that they're saying right now. That's a big deal right there out in culture, right? Where do you get your information? Shepherd knows this, knows that we are prone to follow the herd right off the cliff. That's why in Michigan, when I grew up, one of the lines for Kroger food chain was 1 million Michigan shoppers can't be wrong. That was their only appeal. Look at all the people who go to this grocery store. They can't all be wrong, can they? Look at all the people who support this candidate. That can be wrong, can they? Look at all the people who do and buy this product. They can't be wrong, can they? Can they? Do you do your own research? Do your own homework? Do you look at issues? Or you just get that little 60-second feed and think you got it? Shepherds know sheep are prone to just follow the leader right off the cliff. Okay? Shepherds know that sheep are easily scared or frightened. They're skittish. They jump. They get nervous. They're afraid. You know what Jesus knows? He knows what you're afraid of. He knows what you're fearful of. Do you? That sounds like a stupid question, doesn't it? Do you know what scares you? I bet you do. My next question would be, are you willing to admit it? What bothers you? What keeps you up at night? What takes your spirit, your heart, your soul, and keeps it churning? The Good Shepherd knows that. And that's why Jesus said so often, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Fear not. Don't worry about tomorrow. I've got tomorrow. Don't waste your energy worrying about next week. Let's get through today. That's what Jesus would say to you. The shepherd would know that the sheep are valuable. They are. Their wool, their milk, the meat. If you had a bunch of sheep, you were considered good in the community because you were seen as wealthy, because there was value in the sheep. And I think if I could ask you to think about something this morning and leave with one thing, it's this: Jesus knows your worth. I get we live in a culture that wants to look and say that you're not worth a whole lot. What can you do? Your worth is based on what? What's in your wallet? What's in your wallet? Why is that a big deal? Because that's going to tell me something about who you are, isn't it? What name is on that piece of plastic? Which piece of plastic? Right? Isn't that how we know if do you have a title? What's your title? How many letters do you have after your name? Because that's what's really important, right? And we miss the sense that we are worth something because we're created in the image of God. And it doesn't matter how hard you can throw a baseball. It doesn't matter, can you sit at a laptop and program games? It doesn't matter what your sales reports are. It really doesn't at the end of the day. It matters who you are as a person, your character. What kind of man or woman are you? And Jesus knows that, and that's what he gave his life for when we read in the text that the good shepherd laid down his life for the sheep. Why? Because they were so much worth to him. You are. Do you know, parents and grandparents, how you feel about your kids and your grandkids? Fair to say I was ready to turn mine in on more than one occasion. I would have. If somebody given me a decent price, we'd have made a trade. The beauty of it is you never tell. And we say that in jest because we know we're frustrated. We know we sometimes get at wit's end. But you know at the end of the day, your love for them has nothing at all to do with what they can do. It's who they are. And they're your offspring. They're created in your image. Now take what you feel about your kids and multiply that by how the Father feels about you. And you're getting a little bit close to how he sees your worth and your value. Hey, the second thing that I think why Jesus compared himself to the Good Shepherd is that he's the one who's willing to guide us to good places. The sheep got nowhere without the help of the shepherd. That's why we read in the text that he called them out. They would gather in sheep pens, which were nothing more than caves, or maybe just think of an open range with some, some sort of frame box where they would get all the sheep corralled at night so that there might be a sense of protection. And when we read here in the text that Jesus said that I am the gate, oftentimes what would happen is the shepherd himself would lay in the opening to the pen. So that way there was no enemy that got in at night and the sheep couldn't get out. We've been known to sit outside our kids' door. You ever done that for your kids? You ever had kids sneak out your windows and you nail them shut? No, none of you guys, but we have, okay? Kirsten, in case she asks which one, all right? It's gonna. But that's what the shepherd would do, right? And then in the morning, you might have 2 or 3 flocks there, and each shepherd would have a call for his sheep, and his sheep would know his call. And he would lead them out. And he would lead them out to find good green pasture, and he would lead them beside, that's why I read Psalm 23, he would lead them beside quiet waters. Sheep don't like brooks and rustling streams. It scares them. They get agitated by it. They need basically a quiet, calm drinking hole. And the shepherd, that's what he would do. He would find the best paths for them to walk on. He would find and go and work ahead and say, hey, are there pits or holes where there might be snakes that come out? And he would make sure, boom, no, we're not going to go on that path, right? It was the shepherd's responsibility to guide the sheep into good places. I think one of the coolest things of Jesus as your good shepherd is his willingness to guide you into good places. Places where your soul can flourish. Places where you can, as a person, grow, develop. Where you can grow in traits of God-likeness, but in kindness, in decency, being gracious, where you don't have to respond in kind. I'm at a ball diamond yesterday. I had a catcher, didn't like my call. That was a shocker. Doesn't like my call. He stands up, he takes his mask off, and he's going to get in my face. Now, in that moment, I work with enough umpires to know there's a lot of different ways this could go. But see, I'm not a lot of different umpires. I'm someone who follows Jesus in a stadium full of some people with two teams on either side with a catcher that's a little agitated that he didn't like my call. How will I respond? And I honestly live with this idea that as a Christ follower, I got to respond differently than the non-Christ follower. Otherwise, what's the difference? There is none. And that's what's sadly missing in the church today is we don't allow Jesus to lead us into places where our hearts can be full and we can respond differently in tough times. Anybody can respond well when life's going well. You know that for a fact. You need to follow Christ because he's going to help your heart respond when times are not good. When you get a phone call that someone you care about's in the hospital, when you get the call from the school that your kid didn't do what you wanted them to do, how will you respond in those times? Jesus promises to guide us and lead us beside sheep on their own they won't move on to a pasture, to good stuff. They'll just keep eating dirt. They'll eat the straw. They're just not that bright to go out find good stuff. They need the shepherd's leadership. And so Jesus said, if you will follow, I'll lead you. So here's what my brain does. I said, how does he lead us? Jesus gets out in front. Jesus will never ask you to do something he hasn't already done. Jesus will lead from the front. That's one of the differences of a shepherd versus a hired hand who will beat you from behind. He will treat you with grace and mercy and not with a stick. If you find that you're ever in a situation where you're being beaten by a stick in a religious setting, you know that's not of God. If you're being guilt manipulated, that's not of God. The shepherd doesn't lead his people that way. He gets out in front of them, and then he walks beside them. He goes with us, that they would never go out alone. And that's what the word says. Jesus said, never will I leave you nor forsake you. Jesus said with the disciples, he said, I want you to go out in the world. And as you go out in the world, I'm going with you. God with you? Today. This isn't Easter and Christmas and Emmanuel, right? Is God with you today? Is the shepherd walking with you today with whatever you're going through? Or you got to figure it out and do the best you can. How do I know? That's the other question I asked me. How can I know that Jesus will lead me? How can I know he's telling me the truth? A couple ways. Listen to the word. What's the word say? Get in the word so you know what it says. Because this is the word of God speaking to you. This isn't just a good religious book. I believe this is how God has spoken to us that we might know what he would have us do. What do you do with your money? Who do you consult about your money? Let's just take that one, because that's a big deal. Your wallet is a big deal to you. So where do you get advice on your money? Your financial advisor? Good place, right? Hopefully. You're good people. You can trust them. What's the word say about money? You know what the word says about money? I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm just asking you. Does God speak about money? Well, the only time God speaks about money is when I go to church and they ask me to buy a chair. Might be what you think. I don't know. Right? Some people feel that way. What's the word say about your marriage? About that fight you just had? Somebody in here just had a fight. Anybody want to own it? No, just kidding you. What's the word say about how you handle disappointment? What's the word say how you handle that neighbor that rubs you the wrong way? Boss you don't get along with. What's the word say? I think another way that God speaks to us is through godly people. Do you remember when Jesus is just about ready to enter heaven? It's after the resurrection. He's talking to Peter, and he said to Peter, Peter, do you love me? And Peter said, you know I love you, Lord. He said, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to feed my sheep. I want you to care for my lambs. I want you to take care of my sheep, Peter. And I think one of the ways that God speaks to us is through godly counsel of other people. If we'll listen. If we think that this guy's a nut job on Sunday morning, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, he only talks about the Bible, doesn't really talk about life, I don't really need to listen to him, then you've formed your opinion. If it's possible that God speaks through good people that want your best, I should have my ears up to hear what they've got to say. I think the Lord speaks to us through circumstances. And sometimes we knock on doors and we're like, oh, and I'm not saying, I think like for me, circumstances is like 2 or 3 down the road. Some of us look at circumstances immediately like, oh, look at this. I came upon this great job. It's going to pay me X dollars more. Those are, right? You just told me what your indicators are. They're going to pay me more. More what? Well, more money. More time. What are you going to have to sacrifice to get that? Because nobody gives us stuff away, right? What's the word say? What do godly people say? And then I look at my circumstances. And I'm always evaluating my circumstances in light of the word, in light of what the wisdom of other people say. Third reason that I think that Jesus used this. Oh, I want to share this with you. This was interesting. It fits in this of leading us to good places. One gentleman who used to not believe in God. So I could use the word atheist, but I'm just going to tell you, he didn't believe there was a God. Here's a story. He said, how can I tell you the difference God has made in my life? Here's my story. My daughter Allison was 5 years old when I began to follow Jesus. Think about that, a 5-year-old. And all she had known in those first 5 years was a dad who was profane and angry. Came home from work, spilled out, and lashed out at my family. I remember I came home one night and I kicked a hole in the living room wall just to get the anger out of my life. I'm ashamed to think of the times that she hid in her room to get away from me. 5 months after I gave my life to Jesus, let me use this word. 5 months after I began to follow Jesus, that little girl went to my wife and said, Mommy, I want God to do for me what he's done for Dad. At age 5. What was she saying? She'd never studied the archaeological evidence for the truth of the Bible. She didn't take a class. Hey, can I trust this? All she knew was her dad used to be one way, and now he's another. And more her dad is becoming this way. And if that is what God does to people, then she said, sign me up. At age 5, she gave her life to Jesus. Don't tell me the way we live isn't noticed by the people around us. Christ came to make a difference in us, to guide us into good places. And the last one, he protects us from danger. This is Barak. Barak was 12 million followers on TikTok. He was a rescued sheep down in Australia. Made the internet sensation. They took him in like this. They cut 78 pounds of wool off of him. When I say to you that the Good Shepherd protects us from danger, this guy, if not rescued, had he fallen over, would have never gotten up. He would have died on his side. Couldn't get up. He needed someone to help get him up. They found all sorts of disease in his eyes because of the dirt from the wool. He couldn't see till they sheared it off. One of the things when I say to you that he protects us from danger is he protects us from the danger of ourselves. We're prone to make dumb choices. What's the word say about, what do you want me to pick on? What topic? Let's start with what you struggle with. What's the area you struggle in? What's the word say? And the Good Shepherd, Jesus knows, if you and I are left to our own devices in the areas we struggle with, we will destroy ourselves. You will do yourself harm. And once you do yourself harm, you will do harm to those who love you. That's just the way we're wired. See, it's called addiction. That's why we do it. It's because it feeds something in us and we just want more and more. So the Good Shepherd protects us, and the tools at his disposal were simply a long stick, that a shepherd's crook or a staff. They're really popular at Christmas. I couldn't find one at Easter, but Christmas time I bet I'd had 5, right? And then there you see the rod was more like a hand-to-hand club that they would use to ward off the enemy. The shepherd's crook would be used to guide a sheep that was heading the wrong direction, or maybe pull a sheep off that had fallen off either on its side or fallen into a ditch. He would use it and haul it off. He might use that to guide, to give direction to the sheep. The rod, if the attacking animal got close, he would use that. David had a slingshot, right? Shepherds were known to be very, very accurate with slings, with stones, so that they could hit something from a distance, all trying to protect the sheep. Because left to their own devices, sheep will hurt themselves. Sheep are prone to not only hurt themselves, but as I've said already, they are prone to the attacks of the enemy. And so when we read in the scriptures that Peter said, be on your guard. Your adversary is like a roaring lion looking to see who he might. And the word there, devour, means to destroy. And I don't got to ask you, because I know if I just, here's the question. I'm going to ask it. Do you know people who have really been hurt by life through choices they've made or choices that others have inflicted upon them? Why is human trafficking a big deal in the news right now? I promise you, if it wasn't so prolific, we wouldn't be talking about it. Why is it that humans will sell and hurt other humans for pleasure? Why do we do that? We will hurt one another. We are susceptible to being hurt. And the shepherd says, if you'll follow me, I'll lead you out of that. I'll protect you from that. To the point that Jesus says, the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And at the end of this, he said, my sheep listen to my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. And no one can take them out of my hand. And the Father and my hand, we come together, and you are safe. Do you know the shepherd? Or do you know about him? The sheep were only safe as they followed the shepherd, and they stuck to that guy, except when they were stubborn and wanted to do their own thing. Do you know the shepherd? Do you need guidance today? Are you looking for God to lead you? Is there something going on in your life where you feel like, man, I just don't know what the next step to take is? Are you willing to ask that you might hear from him? I've always found the scary part of asking God for guidance is this. Maybe some of you can identify. The scary part is, what if he answers? See, if I don't ask, I don't know. If it just works out, it worked out. It didn't work out. What if I ask and there's a specific answer? What do I do with that? Did God hear me? Or did I just get lucky? Is there a shepherd that knows you, wants what's best for you? Or you're just like, man, got a shot at this. Jesus would say, I am the good shepherd. You want to know who I am? I'm the one who's there for you. I will protect you. I will lead you. I will guide you. I've died for you. Will you follow me? So when you came in, you were given, if you close your eyes, a piece of wool. Here's what I've done with my wool. I've attached it to my keychain of the vehicle that I drive every day. It has my house key on it. Here's what I would ask you to do with the wool. Would you put it somewhere where you will see it every day and let it remind you that there is one who cares for your soul, one who loves you, has promised to guard you. Remember, David said that he leads me beside quiet waters. He leads me on paths of righteousness. He makes me lie down in green pastures. And then it says, for his name's sake. See, it's the shepherd's reputation to get the sheep home safely. And if you had a bad reputation as a shepherd, like you didn't protect your sheep, you didn't get a job. The next people wouldn't hire you because word gets out. Happens today. How do some people get hired and some people don't? Reputation. Your references, right? It's the shepherd's reputation to see that he gets you safely through. So here's my challenge to you. Where could you put this that you would see it and be reminded that the shepherd is for you? Could be your wallet, could be your purse, could be a spot in your car. But I want you to put this somewhere where you will see this and be reminded that the shepherd has you, because that's what he does. Team's coming up. The goal of the shepherd is to get the sheep safely home. I'll leave you the quote C.S. Lewis. Thought this was interesting. As far as we know, it cost God nothing to create all the good stuff that we see. What it cost him? Nothing. To give you a shot at heaven, to heal your brokenness, to lead you into good places, it cost the life of his son. Will you follow him? Stand together and sing with these guys.